Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the 2024 presidential election and discussing what I would call bombshell leak of Biden campaign internal polls, and they are disastrous. I think this is the single worst week Democrats have had in at least a number of years between the debate, the Supreme Court ruling, and now these polls, and the calls for Biden to step down and let Kamala Harris run this campaign are growing louder and louder. I'll be talking a bit about whether or not I think from an electoral perspective Democrats would benefit from Biden stepping down and having Kamala Harris lead the ticket in my next video. But in this video, we'll be talking about a Biden versus Trump matchup. And this matchup, per Democratic internal polls, would be disastrous for the Democratic Party. So let's talk about it. As you can see, they had some pre-debate polling and post-debate polling. What we saw was that even pre-debate, Biden was in a lot of trouble. He was losing Wisconsin, Nebraska too, and New Hampshire, but he was holding on in Virginia, New Mexico, and Maine, as well as Minnesota and Colorado. Actually, Maine stayed blue, but by 0.2%. But we saw that in these internal polls, Virginia and New Mexico flipped in the pre-debate polls to the post-debate polls. So we saw that Biden lost enough support in Virginia and New Mexico in these samples to flip the states in the polls. And so that is genuinely, to me, disastrous for Biden. Because, look, I don't think these polls are going to be accurate. I don't think Biden is going to lose New Mexico by 0.5 point, let alone win it by even 3. I think he's still going to win New Mexico by a couple points. The same thing goes to me for Virginia. Now, here's the problem, right? Here's the problem. You don't win elections when your campaign behaves like this. In 2020, one of the reasons in the final week of that election why I thought Biden was going to win, albeit by a lot less than a lot of people thought, I had Biden winning 290 electoral votes. He won 306. I missed one state, Georgia. But the reason that I was fairly confident Biden was at least the favorite to win that election last time was because of the way the Trump campaign was acting, the way Republicans were acting. The day before the election in Texas, this is one of my favorite stories. John Cornyn told voters that they shouldn't be afraid to split their ticket. He was trying to win over Biden voters, likely in the suburbs, and hold on to his Senate seat. And the argument on November 2nd was that John Cornyn really thought Trump was going to lose Texas. Now, there's certainly some merit to that. I can see why one would interpret such a statement like that. And Republicans in the final weeks of 2020 did not behave like they were going to win. They were very, very distressed. Their campaign managers were not giving off any signs of confidence. We saw them investing in red states at the last minute, like in the Montana Senate race or the Kansas Senate race or even South Carolina. And ultimately, they did better than a lot of people thought. But Trump still lost, and that was what mattered. And this time around, look, it's the same thing. The same way I heard what John Cornyn said, and I took that to mean that Republicans have internal polling showing Trump slipping with suburban voters, right? Like, that to me made sense. I didn't believe Trump was going to lose Texas or come close to losing Texas, but it was concerning. This is the same thing. I won't take this to mean that Biden will lose New Mexico or Virginia, but it does show Democrats are terrified about how this election is going because we see Biden slipping in all these states, and we see that, Democratic politicians, Lloyd Doggett of Texas today, congressman from a safe blue seat in Austin, officially was the first sitting House Democrat to call for Biden to step down. And we saw, we also kind of saw Jared Golden write an article essentially saying he believes he's very confident Trump will win the election, that, Democrats should compromise with Trump when he returns to the White House. So Democrats right now are not behaving like a party that even thinks that they have a 50% chance of winning this election. Right? Like, a lot of people really seem to indicate, or at least even a week ago, a lot of people were saying, look, this race is really close. It's a 50-50 race. It can go either way. But Democrats don't seem to think that. If Democrats thought that, we wouldn't have such dysfunction where we're getting, bad internal polls leaked. We wouldn't be having a conversation about Trump's already going to win this election. Here's what we can do next year. And we wouldn't have sitting members of Congress calling on the president to resign. That is, again, not how a party winning this election, or even close to winning this election, would behave. The fact of the matter is, we know in the polls Biden is losing. And this can't be chalked up to bad crosstabs anymore. 2 months ago, when you looked at the polls, you'd say, oh, these polls don't make any sense because Biden is, losing the youth vote. Sure, right? Like that is believable. I understand why there'd be some skepticism related to that. But we now know in Democratic internal polling, we know that Biden is losing. And this corroborates what all the other polls are saying. It's not like in, some of the polls, Biden's up by 7 in Wisconsin, and other ones he's down by 10 in Michigan, right? The polls all line up and they all show bad news for Biden. There's no spin you can put on this to make it, be decent for Biden. So Biden's losing. Democrats seem to know he's losing. And this is obviously a major problem. And again, generally winning campaigns don't debate 4 months before the election whether or not they need to replace their nominee. That's just not how these things work, right? Like, Biden has had concerns about his age for a while, but this week they've been so unbearably loud for Democrats that there is a decent chance he gets replaced. Still wouldn't bet on it. There's probably a 20 to 30% chance Biden gets replaced. So that's what I have to say about these polls. And I'll not show you the map just to show you how, big they are, just the gravity of them. Biden is narrowly holding on to Minnesota and Colorado by less than a point, as well as Maine. He's losing in Wisconsin and New Hampshire by under 5. But beyond that, and Trump's flipping New Mexico and Virginia, which, if that were to happen, it would already be ball game for Biden. But beyond that, take a look at some of these other swing states: Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. These are all swing states, and all of them, with the exception of North Carolina, voted for Biden in 2020. Trump now leading these states by at least 5 points. I think the closest is Pennsylvania. He's up by, I think, 7 in Pennsylvania, or we can look. In Michigan, Pennsylvania, he's up by 7 in both states. So we know that these polls bleak for Biden. And so the one thing that I want to talk about here, just finally, is that I think that there is genuine pressure within the campaign for Biden to step down. This is coordinated, right? Like, these post-debate polls have existed for a couple days now, but they only got leaked this morning. What does that mean? It means that someone sat on these polls for a few days and decided to leak them today. And I think that's because there's kind of a coordinated effort to get Biden to step down from Democrats. I think the Democrats think that if they can hurt him enough, if they can get him to, really believe he can't win, he'll step down. It's kind of throwing the kitchen sink at Biden. And it might work. I'm a lot less confident in Biden staying in the race than I was, in the day after the debate, even though obviously the debate was an objective fiasco for Democrats and for the Biden campaign. And so it just seems like Democrats and the people within this campaign don't think Biden can win. They don't think it's close. They don't think that there's really a path forward. And I think that they believe the only way that they can salvage this, they can come back and actually beat Trump in November, is with a different nominee. And again, when you look at these polls that were leaked, none of them are really good for Biden or any of the Democrats. Trump's leading in most of these states, but Buttigieg performs better, Harris performs better, Newsom performs better, and Gretchen Whitmer performs the best. So we know that there are legitimate, outputs in this poll that can be interpreted as an endorsement of someone else. Any of these candidates look better than Biden in the polls. Biden's losing in all these states here. Buttigieg, Harris, Newsom, Whitmer, they're winning in a couple of them. Whitmer, as you can see, does really well in Michigan. Buttigieg does really well in Wisconsin for whatever reason. I think that's interesting. Harris does a little worse, but she's kind of within the margin of error, similar to Newsom, although Newsom is actually winning Wisconsin. So these polls are all very, very bad for Biden, but they also, I think, can be read as a clear signal that Biden is not wanted by this party to be the nominee. And I fully expect there to be a very difficult conversation about this nomination in the coming weeks. The convention is in, I believe, early August. So there's still time, but if Democrats are going to act, they're going to have to act soon, because this is clearly a race that they're losing. It's clearly a race that they don't believe they're winning either. And I think it's clear that the consensus among the members of this party is that there's only one way out of that, and it's a different nominee. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you expect to happen in these unpredictable coming days, and I'll see you all in the next one.